Welcome to MissouriNet.com. A big week for Missouri football. And, of course, we all know after that Georgia game, things were looking pretty bleak, but the Tigers up to this point have stepped up and have played well. Now they have what I thought was really, when you looked at the schedule and they got past Georgia and you thought, you know what, if they can get all the way to Arkansas, that would be a good win. You look at all their struggles they had, but then all of a sudden this team has gotten red hot. And we're talking with Tom Murphy from the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette, who's going to fill us in on the Arkansas Razorbacks, who may be the hottest team in the SEC right now, Tom.
Yeah, Bill, the last 2 weeks have been incredible when you consider the struggles they had gone through, just the heartbreaks, and it was game after game. And they kept answering the bell and being in competition but couldn't close out these games. For them to have now shut out back-to-back ranked opponents, first team in college history, football history, to ever do that is pretty astounding. And they're just doing it with a really solid defense and kind of an offense that doesn't make a lot of mistakes. They haven't been pounding on the ball nearly as they did in some of the early games, but they're getting the job done, and I suspect Friday is going to be an awesome game.
Well, and that's one of the things, too. I mean, you look at it and you look at the numbers, and I've seen people kind of breaking the numbers down. So, Arkansas isn't as scary as you look, and you kind of look at the big picture of things. And people have done this with Missouri, too, where they look at it and say, well, Missouri, are they really this good? But I think you've got to look like over the last few weeks, and that's why I brought up, for example, with Missouri, the Georgia game. Yeah, if you went and looked at Georgia and Indiana, you would look at those games and say that this Missouri team is no good, and if that's what you draw your sample off of. But if you've watched them for the last couple of weeks, yeah, they're really good. Well, same thing with Arkansas. You can you take the whole cumulative average, and yeah, their numbers might be down because they lost so many games right at the beginning. But this team, though, I think is solid, and like I said, maybe the hottest one in the SEC right now.
Well, the defensive side of the ball is what really is getting it done. They were gashed through the air and on the ground in the opener against Auburn, and then Georgia really ran all over them, and that was a bit of an outlier game. They had one quarter, the second quarter, where they turned the ball over. I think they had 3 turnovers, maybe 4 in that quarter, and Georgia capitalized on every one, including a defensive score, and then they picked off a pass in the end zone right before halftime. Well, the final score is 45-32. It's a 13-point game, but they gave up 31 points in that one quarter. And since then, it's been kind of a steady progression for the Razorbacks, which included holding Alabama down in a 14-13 game. I mean, Alabama had 227 yards on them in that game, and it's gotten better. And where they are vulnerable is through the air. They've really shut teams down on the ground, but they have been home games. That's why I think this game takes on a very specific, different dynamic than what they've done at home in recent games. Mississippi State ran on them a little bit. I think they had around 130 or 160 rushing in that game. So I think the key for the Razorbacks is to really try to limit the run. And if they can do that, they might have a chance.
We're talking with Tom Murphy, the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette, and I'm glad that you brought that up because that was the one thing that, as a Missouri guy, I'm looking at it and trying to tell our Mizzou fans, okay, everybody always looks at your opponent and think, oh, we got to be worried about this. And the one thing I said is, well, they've done that at home. Let's see what they can do on the road. But the fact that you brought up that they're really good against the run, that's Missouri's bread and butter because the passing game has struggled. Talk about their run defense and what they do so well and why this could be tough for Marcus Murphy and Russell Hansbrough.
Well, they're a strong veteran team on the front with guys like Trey Flowers, the end, who's just having a phenomenal year. His stats aren't great, but he's drawing some double team. He's a good player. Darius Philon, who I think is the reigning defensive lineman of the week in the SEC, recovered a fumble last week. He's legitimate. He's a guy that Alabama was going to take, and he had an injury his senior year, and they kind of pulled the scholarship, wanted him to gray shirt, and so he came to Arkansas, and he has been awesome. Their front is veteran. The linebacker play has gotten a lot better this year under Rob Smith. Just a nice scheme. The communication is strong right now, and they know where all their fits are. So even though they came into the season and people questioned their speed and depth at linebacker as well as safety, they've just got continually better throughout the year, and their tackling has really been a strength. So, but what it does create is this. Let's just say they hold Missouri to 120 or so rushing. I mean, it's kind of an average type number or a little slightly below average number. Can Mock in the passing game beat them? That's where they've been vulnerable. That's what Arkansas wants to create. We want you to throw the ball, and then they try to break up passes and stuff. And last week it really came together. Bo Wallace left some passes floating in the air, and Arkansas wound up with 4 picks, and that's really what turned the game.
Well, that's interesting. I mean, here's the thing, and I've been a big supporter of Matty Mock. A lot of people have criticized him. He's had to learn. I mean, he basically came in with just a couple of games experience, and he's had to build. Does he get into one of those situations where he tries to force things, especially if the running game isn't there? And so that'll be an interesting matchup to watch. I think the one thing that has helped Missouri and what's kind of made them look good is they've had one big quarter where they exploded for 28 points against Texas A&M in the third quarter. 2 long touchdown passes from Mock in the fourth quarter at Tennessee. So to hear that they can certainly defend the run, and you got to beat them through the air. That could be difficult. Now, Tom, I want to go to your offense and that offensive line because we hear about how big they are, the biggest around, bigger than NFL offensive lines. Tell us about that side of the ball and their offensive front, because that, to me, has been where Missouri has prospered on defense, their defensive line being able to put up pressure. But this sounds like this might be a tough matchup for the Tigers.
Well, Missouri's got fast defensive ends, and that's the kind, like the Georgia game, Arkansas's tackles struggled to contain the edges. Guys got free off the edges and brought pressure, and that's the worst pass protection game Arkansas has had, that in the Alabama game. So they're big guys. I mean, Dan Skipper is 6'10", and the other tackle, Bray Cook, is a 6'7" guy. They're really heavy on the interior at their tackles. Sebastian Totola, who threw the TD pass against UAB and gained some notoriety, he's around 340. And their other guard, Denver Kirkland, is around 340, 335 as well. So really big. But what they have to do, they have to cut their splits down. So they're really tight up the middle. And that means sealing the edge or handling the edge. They might have to chip with some tight ends. Their backs sometimes have to help there too. They're not the fastest tackles. So containing Missouri's pass pressure, Golden and Ray, those guys, is going to be difficult for Arkansas. And I would suspect Missouri can see what other teams have done. They could probably pull off the same thing and limit Arkansas's run. And if Arkansas has to pass the ball, and specifically if Austin Allen is the quarterback, they're going to have their work cut out for them to move the ball down the field on Missouri.
Yeah, talk about the two brothers and their story and what's going on in that situation, because there's a possibility there could be a true freshman playing.
Well, a redshirt freshman in Austin Allen, but Brandon Allen is a junior. He was here when Petrino was still here, and so he saw what Tyler Wilson did, the big passing teams, and he suffered through the John L. Smith year. And he's a better player now. He's more mature. He doesn't make near as many mistakes. His TDs to interceptions is 16-5, and anybody could live with that ratio. So he's done a lot better. He's smart at the line, gets them in good checks. He doesn't have a super strong arm, but he just plays smart. And they moved him around in the pocket against LSU, and that was really effective for him. And I would think that against Missouri's pass rush, they might try to move the target. He got hit on his hip last week. They say it's a soft tissue injury, that it's not, a broken bone or any problem like that. Brett Bielema said yesterday that he could play. I'm thinking it's maybe a 50-50 shot. And Austin Allen, he gave up a couple of sacks last week where he held on to the ball way too long. So he just got that inexperience factor. They passed the ball with him. His first series in, he completed a third down pass and moved the chains. And they later, they had a 2-minute drive, missed a field goal, and then they had a 41-yard drive in the second half. So it was 3 specific small drives that he did okay, and they didn't get touchdowns out of any of them. So if it's Austin Allen, I see it being very difficult for Arkansas to put up 21 points.
Let's say that Brandon is there, and even if he's not 100%, let's just say that he's in there at quarterback and everything is equal for this game. How do you see it playing out from your side there in Arkansas?
Well, I see Arkansas trying to establish its run, and if they can, they'll stay with it. They'll run those draw plays and those traps and all the things they do, and stay with it. Try to milk clock, and if they can hold Missouri's rushing game down, I think Arkansas will have a path to victory. If their run game gets slowed down, I see it being much more difficult. And let's just say Brandon Allen is healthy enough to play. Well, is he healthy enough to move around in the pocket? Because it's a very sore hip right now. That cuts down on one of their assets, which is him on 3rd and 5, seeing things covered up and being able to scramble for 7 or 8 yards. So the fact that it's a road game, the fact that Brandon Allen might not be 100%, I think it plays into being a very close game. I don't know what the latest Vegas line is, but a pick 'em or along those lines, I think is pretty accurate at this point.
Do you think, is it far off to say that both teams could be in single digits with scores when you look at the defense?
Well, I mean, I think that's within the realm of possibility. And I think it's supposed to be a beautiful day, so maybe that'll help the offenses a little bit. I think I'm going to be more in the teens. I mean, if you really study what Arkansas has done recently, 14-13 against Bama. They had 17-10 against Mississippi State, 17-0 against LSU. It's been hard for them to get out past the 20 range. They did it last week, but there was a defensive score, and they got the ball on the 1-yard line and didn't get it in from there either. So I think it's in the teens, and like a 20-17 type of game, 20-14 type of game would be my guess.
Yeah, it's going to be low score. I think the defense is really. I think you're going to see both of them play pretty well. What does everyone think about the battle line rivalry? Is there a sense that this could be a new rivalry there? And obviously, from Missouri's standpoint, there was the whole Mizzou-KU connection with Kansas, and so people are trying to warm up to this a little bit. I mean, I think from our standpoint. I look at this and think it could be a great rivalry because you've got Mike Anderson, who left Mizzou to become the basketball coach. So there's some feelings there. And really, when Mizzou and Arkansas played each other back in the Cotton Bowl on New Year's Day of 2008, that was a bowl win and a victory in a season that really put Mizzou on the map. And that was a monumental win for this team. So maybe it means more from Missouri side, but how do Arkansas fans look at this new rivalry that's starting, that they're calling the battle line rivalry?
Right. Well, it seems to me in today's corporate world, you got to give it a title, and you got to find a trophy to present with it. And this is year one. They will grow into it, much like Missouri fans will grow into it, because it's going to be there. The recruiting wars will get more and more populated. And there's already been a couple, even before Missouri joined the conference with DGB and such, and Ronnie Wingo before that. But anyway, it will grow. It will become something. The Thanksgiving weekend will have something to do with it. The animosity between the fan bases will only go up, I see. And you're right. Missouri football in the public conscious didn't have much of a presence before the 2007-2008 seasons, and really started to grow. It's just strange, in my opinion, that the SEC couldn't find a way to fit Missouri into the West. I wish that would work out, and I don't know if there's a way down the road where it will. I think it ultimately comes down to Auburn does not want to be in the East, does not want to separate from Alabama, because they're the most natural team to move over. So it is what it is for right now. It's an East versus West. It's a border thing, and I suspect it will grow into a doozy of a rivalry. Now, it will never have the long-standing tradition that the Egg Bowl and the Iron Bowl and that do, but you do the best with what you have.
Well, you know what? This rivalry will grow if Arkansas comes up here and beats Mizzou this week and keeps them out of the SEC championship game. There'll be some hatred on this side, that's for sure.
Well, that'll be a little bit of a stake driven into the wedge between the two programs, and for right now it's interesting. Talking to Brett Bielema and Jim Chaney, who's a Missouri native, good friends with Dave Steckel on the staff. So you'll probably see them out at midfield before the game and reacquainting themselves. So I don't know. You know what? This game it's going to be fun as the years go by. Obviously, Missouri has come into this league and has a chance to win 2 out of the first 3, which is an amazing feat. It's in the East, which is a little bit down right now, but it's still an amazing feat. So I think both A&M and Missouri have come in with a little bit of a splash, and because of that, Arkansas is going to have to respond to make the rivalry turn into something nice.
Yeah, it'll be good stuff. It'll be a great game to watch. Tom Murphy from the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette. Thank you for joining us, and let's make it a yearly visit.
All right. Sounds good, Bill. Take care.
Right. Yep, thank you. And thanks for watching us at MissouriNet.com.